You're listening to Articulate with your hosts, Kevin Kramer and Sean Gillespie, your go-to guys for art tips, techniques, and general artist ramblings. Presented by drawingandcoloring.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Articulate, the podcast where we talk about everything art. And as always, I'm your host, Kevin Kramer, and my co-host is
Sean Gillespie.
Sitting
hey guys.
right there in his own studio.
Yeah.
As always, is doing this via Skype is a nice convenience.
Yeah. Can't get out of the studio, Kevin. I got work
too busy. Too busy.
Yeah. Busy man.
I'm reading all the time. I can't get out of here. All right. So today's episode, we are going to be covering basically the tools you need to draw. French curves, possibly, but maybe
what I got in my hand right now.
Yeah, those maybe not those so much, but
no, maybe not. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yes, we'll get to the French curves in just a minute.
Yeah,
but today we're going to be focusing.
Before we get to the French curves, Kevin, maybe we should start with a little bit of history about some of these tools that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, and I think the main place to start would probably be the pencil. So
the pencil,
yes,
I'd say the pencil is a pretty good place to start.
Is that? Yeah, I think that would be a pretty solid one to start on with. And I have a little bit of information on that. The pencil was actually before 1565 in Cumbria, England. That's where it originated. Okay. So that's pretty old, pretty much the oldest tool.
Well, we're gonna go back
you gotta get to charcoal
on this one, Kevin.
You're gonna go to charcoal, aren't you?
Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to the charcoal with the little sticks in the fire and drawing on caves. I mean, that's really the first pencil, right?
Yes, you can go that far. I'm talking about the modern pencil.
Okay, well,
as we know it today, the modern pencil.
All right, well that seems fair.
The graphite pencil, not charcoal.
Okay. Oh, yes. All right.
There's the distinguishing factor.
I got you. Okay, cool.
All right. And it was actually the first pencil was used to mark sheep. How weird is that?
Mark sheep. What were they marking sheep for?
Well, I didn't get that detailed into the research, but
I was just curious why one would need to mark their sheep. But I guess maybe probably marking them because we're going to shear this one here and not
maybe
this
they
one
roamed
here.
Around a lot. They had to keep track of them.
And there was probably his kid was coming along and drawing pictures on his sheep, and he's like, "What is this?" And he's like, "It's a picture of that sheep over there on this sheep's butt, Dad." And he's like, "You just invented the pencil, son!"
Holy crap!
I think that's probably exactly how.
I think that's pretty much how things went down.
I'm kind of an expert on history,
and I can see.
Pretty sure it's how it went.
Yeah.
So Kevin, are there different types of pencils depending on the kind of drawing you're planning on doing?
I would definitely go with some different pencils.
All right.
And,
let's say that you just want to do a figure study, loosey-goosey, throwing it together. What's the type of pencil you might use for that?
Well, if you want to get into that would most people start with charcoal pencils for those kind of drawings.
Yeah.
I personally haven't really used charcoal that way too much. But I don't do a lot of figure drawing either.
Right. Yeah. Charcoal sticks and stuff. They're not necessarily pencils per se. They're just basically sticks of charcoal.
Right.
But then you would also use like a blending tool, which you would also, I think Kevin uses a lot when he's doing his super realism drawings.
Hyper realistic stuff.
Hyper realistic, excuse me.
It's another level of realism that.
Okay. Beyond super, all into the hyper realm of realism.
There's realism and then there's hyper, which is just amazing.
But you get these blending sticks, and they're super cheap. Well, like 90 cents a piece or something like that. And you just blend them in small circles.
Yeah, you can get those in real small packs of bunches.
Yeah, and if you don't want to pay it, you can even make your own with just rolling up some little pieces of newspaper, which is what we used to do back in the day. So tools everywhere, Kevin, for drawing.
Anything you want to use could possibly be a drawing tool.
So when you're doing your hyper-realism drawings, what do you use, an ebony pencil? What type of pencil do you use?
Well, that's actually a interesting question, because I used to use ebony for my dark blacks, but later and just recently realized that that's not the best one to use to get the dark blacks because it's so reflective.
Okay.
So when you do like a lot of black on it, it's almost impossible to photograph that at all. And when you're looking at it directly, it's a pain. You can't even...
Too reflective. So what pencils do you use now?
Actually, I go to charcoal pencils for the dark blacks because they have that rougher texture and it doesn't reflect light as much.
I got you. And do you use these blending sticks here?
Of course I do.
Use your finger, Kevin? Is your finger also a tool that we can add to the list?
I wouldn't. You could, but I don't.
Okay. And probably a bad idea because the oils in your finger can actually react to the paper in an adverse way and give it kind of a dirty look. And also, if you have dirty fingers, you know, can do it. So don't use your fingers, kids.
Yes, do not do that. If you use the charcoal pencils on top of that, I'm gonna plus. If you use the charcoal pencils and you put your fingers on the paper, that'll show your fingerprints whenever you're using the charcoal.
And if you want that look, that's good. But if you're trying to do hyper realism like old Kevin does here, then probably not the look you're going for.
Nope. You want that refined look. You got to go with the precision marks.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what if you mess up? What if you mess up, Kevin? We need some type of eraser, surely. I mean, you can't just have a pencil without an eraser.
Yes, of course. That makes sense, I would say.
Use, Kevin, use this one that is in my hand here. I got a nice kneaded eraser.
Pulled that out of nowhere.
The design company here. Whoop.
Yes, that is actually one of my favorite erasers that I use. That's probably the most versatile one as far as you know, molding it, pulling it, cleaning it too.
Cleaning it out, using it. But I also need a hard white eraser when I'm using mine. I need both. The kneaded eraser is good for just some light lifting, and you can get some heavier marks off, but that hard white pencil or eraser is really going to do well.
Yeah, definitely.
Painting technique with watercolor and airbrushing is to get a mechanical or electric eraser and erase through the paint and into the paper to create highlights.
Interesting.
And that's good for those techniques, the electric eraser, but in my experience, the electric eraser is so strong that it just goes right through whatever you've got and tears up the paper. So that's why it's good for watercolor and airbrush. But if you're just drawing, which is what we're focusing this podcast on, I'm going to say electric eraser probably isn't going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah, I have an electric eraser, but I have it more for, oh, look at that cool gadget. It's not really a tool that I find myself using often at all. You
find that same problem? It rips right through the paper or goes, you know.
I find that it doesn't really lift any kind of marks up that well. It's because it just spins. And if you have a lot of graphite on the paper, it just kind of smears it. It doesn't really do much to it.
Okay. So mine would smear it but also, you know, rip up the paper into little, you know, globs, and it was that's no good.
Well, that goes into kind of like paper weight. So
right. That's a good question. So what kind of paper do you use, Kevin? If you're just drawing, just straight up, you're going to be drawing and not going to be adding any ink or watercolor to it.
Yeah. Well, I actually probably use something that most people don't use as far as paper. I don't really use a lot of traditional, like the Arches or the Canson type of paper, like just a regular paper you can go pick up per slice. No, not slice. What is?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
You're on your own here.
Piece of paper. I don't usually go pick those up out of the store. I have once or twice
from the store,
from the art store. But for my main pieces, I usually use mat board.
Okay.
Which is because I could never find pieces of paper big enough.
Okay.
So that actually was a really good alternative. Okay. And it's usually acid free, which is good too.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it acid-free. A lot of times I'll use like bristle board, especially if I'm planning on inking it later. I'll get a 100-pound, I want at least a 90-pound press if I'm going to be inking or anything like that on it, which most of my work I do end up inking or airbrushing on top of and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's pretty rare that I'll do just a straight-up drawing without that intention, unless it's for a sketch for something, in which case I'll just use sketch paper.
Right. Well, the sketch books that I have are all of those types of papers. I just kind of do all of my sketching in the sketch books. I don't really do a lot of I don't do a lot of main preliminary drawings on paper.
And you can also get, like, if you are interested in watercolor and things like that, you can get hard press, you know, naturally made color paper that's up to like, I've got a sheet that's like 5 feet long. And it's
right.
like, why would you ever need a sheet that big? I don't know, but they do sell them.
So. Yeah, a friend that I have actually will have on in an interview pretty soon. He originally started with butcher paper.
Oh yeah,
just brown butcher paper, and
oil pastels.
Yeah, it was a really good contrast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we know that what we're going to use. We know what kind of pencil we're going to use. We know what kind of eraser we're going to use. We know what kind of paper we're going to use if we're going to just sketch or we're going to, depending on what your project is.
For sure.
So what have we got? We've got kneaded eraser. We've got, if you're going to ink or anything, at least 100-pound bristle paper. Otherwise, you can use sketch paper or butcher paper, Oh, yeah. And or a textured paper if you want to kind of have a textured look to it.
Yeah, that'll give you a nicer. The paper can really change the way your image looks completely.
And a lot of people too, when using charcoal, especially, just get the newspaper press paper, which is just real thin gray paper, and that creates a pretty cool look. Because then you can use white charcoal as well to give it kind of a look for the highlights. And so we decided for the pencil, we decided what was that? We decided what kind of pencil were we going to go with? We weren't going to go with an ebony pencil, you said.
Oh, as far as drawing pencil, if you want to get into the different types of pencils, like the hardnesses and different ones like that.
Not too much. Just
just the type of pencil would be a graphite, just a standard graphite pencil. I rarely, if ever, use a mechanical pencil. Mm-hmm. I do for, like the finer details and stuff like that, but it's just easier to keep the point on them. But as far as regular drawing, I use a 2B, just like a regular standard school pencil.
Yeah, now I use a mechanical pencil quite a bit, but that's because I'm going to ink it afterwards. So a real fine line for me doesn't have varying thicknesses and dimension is good because I'm going to get that when I ink it. But if you're not going to be inking it, if the final product is the pencil, then you want a regular pencil. Now, Kevin, one of the things I remember from art school back in the day, traditional graphite pencil or charcoal pencil that's just regular pencil. One thing you're never supposed to do is put that sucker in a pencil sharpener.
Oh,
like a roller around pencil sharpener.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, they don't like that. They want you to sit there with a little X-Acto knife and sharpen it with the X-Acto knife.
Yeah, and just whittle it away.
Yeah, that was what they had us do all the time. Or lightly and very gently a little handheld pencil sharpener in some cases. But I had a professor who was dead set against that too.
Really?
So yeah, because it's real easy to break the lead. So, but my thing is, like, pencil costs like 2 cents, buddy. I'm just gonna. I'll just sharpen it again. But
it's like 140 billion pencils made globally every year. I think.
He was adamant about it, but some people, they have their quirks. So, yeah.
To me, honestly, I think using an X-Acto knife to sharpen your pencil is harder and easier to break the lead than just using a handheld.
Yeah. I mean, I always used a handheld when he wasn't looking, for sure.
Yeah, I use a handheld, and I have a little battery operated pencil sharpener that just works perfect.
All right, that's cool.
It runs down the batteries quick, but it works.
One that looks like the Millennium Falcon that I use.
Oh yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Interesting note. It kind of sounds like a Star Trek type of.
Excuse me.
What?
Star Wars.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. I've been watching Star Trek a lot.
Let's never make that mistake again. Speaking of mistakes, though, Kevin.
Oh, I see you're holding one right there.
You and I were talking about this before we aired, I think last week. We're talking about, well, what are some of the materials you need? And we talked about pencils and all the things we talked about. And we got to French curves.
We did.
And you had much the same thing to say about French curves, which is I bought them and I've never, ever, ever used them. No.
That is a true statement. I've tried to use them too.
And I cannot find a purpose for them. I've gone online and I've seen other artists use them, and they get a lot of use, and they're really helpful to those artists. And if you get them and you play with them and you find they are helpful to you, then more power to you. But for me, learn to draw a curve, and I just drew it myself. I don't, I'm, if there's a fan out there who knows how to use these things, shoot us an email and say, hey, look, this is why we use them, because you can't draw this particular curve with your free hand, but I'm going to then send you a video of me drawing it with my free hand, because I've never had any curve. So.
I cannot say that I've found a use for these. These have dust on them. If we have a viewer that wants to test these out and make an awesome drawing, I will send you these.
There you go. Yeah, shoot us your email and Kevin will send you his French curves.
You can send it to info@articulatepodcast.com. I will send you these with the best. Give me the best reason you can find of why you want to get these and what you want to draw, and I will ship these to your house, because I have no use for them.
Now, what is helpful, though, are these circle templates. Now, I do get a lot of use out of these, because it's the ones with the circle where it's more of an ellipse, because it's a circle at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those I get a lot of use for, because that's hard to freehand. There are some perspective tricks you can do to get that, where you break them into squares and triangles, and you eventually make the ellipse.
Yeah, that sounds complicated.
We'll maybe do a podcast on that. Maybe want to get the templates, but you also, I would say, definitely need the old compass.
Yeah, that's a key tool, I would say.
I definitely need the compass. Now, I'm a big fan of this safety compass here. Now, this is the kind of compass that I got in the 3rd grade when they were afraid we'd use our, I went to a school maybe in the hood. It was a little bit of in the hood.
Okay.
They were afraid we'd take our compasses and stab somebody's eyes out with them or something like that.
Yeah.
So they gave us these safety compasses. But the thing I really loved about them is that you don't poke any holes in the paper. So as anybody who knows, with the safety compass or with a regular compass, you stick the needle into the paper, and then your pencil end around, and makes how you make the circle. But with this safety compass, you've got a series of smaller circles that you can make on this side or on one end, but then you can use that side as the pivot to make larger circles.
Ah, nice.
So you don't end up with any holes in your paper. Works just as good. You're still getting a circle out of it, but works way better. Now this
I should actually get myself one of those. I don't even have one.
These are awesome. Yeah, I definitely recommend these. Now they've got some that are look a little more mature and my particular model here. But the downside is that the holes on the safety compass are so small, you do have to generally use a mechanical pencil for that part, but then you can just go back over it with, your regular charcoal pencil or whatever you've got.
Right.
Make it more effective. So definitely recommend those, as well as the T-square.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to use the old T-square.
I don't have a T-square, but I have a lot of rulers.
You don't use a T-square?
I have a lot of rulers.
Please don't use a T-square, man. I've tried to eyeball the. Do you use a triangle though instead?
No, I guess I just kind of wing it. Yeah.
Wow, my hat's off to you, sir. I definitely need my T-square to line me up and make sure everything is perpendicular, because
I will say this though, as far as I guess sometimes I make a ghetto T-square. I use my smaller ruler, and then I have one of those big yardsticks, so I can put one at the top and the bottom, and I can do that how I need it.
You home make it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, Kevin, but they sell these things called T-squares.
They actually sell these, is what you're saying.
They sell these, and you can buy them instead of making your own, and it's, they're like $1 each, and
is that all they cost?
Just line them up to the paper, and you make little perpendicular lines with those. They're pretty nice.
I would like to make a note on the one that you have is clear.
Yeah.
And I do prefer a clear ruler over the solid ones, just because you can see when you're covering up anything else, and you can see exactly where you're drawing your other lines at.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And when I was in the 3rd grade, I remember I had a clear ruler, and I told the girl that sat next to me that when I looked through it, it became X-ray, and that I could see and that was a lot of fun because I think.
Right.
And yeah, so clear rulers have multi-purposes. They're not X-ray though.
Sadly. Yeah.
But
it's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off. But I also keep like a regular ruler handy too.
Right.
This one's not clear, but I do keep that handy just in case, because if you're in the middle of the page, the T-square is going to be a pain in the butt because it's going to pop up off of the page.
Right. That's the main reason I don't use one.
But yeah, so I keep both. That way I don't have to make my own Kevin style and then use my other one here too.
Well, with the drawing paper that I use, when I use the mat board, it's so big that it's almost bigger than my drawing table, so that doesn't even really fit. So that's the main problem with that.
They make T-squares that are enormous. I've got my bigger one downstairs, but it's ginormous T-square.
It's so big.
It's ginormous.
Okay, cool. So I think we've covered quite a bit here. So
pretty much all the tools you need. So we got a charcoal pencil or graphite pencil.
Right, charcoal or graphite. You can pick whatever, go test them, different hardnesses, HB to H, hard, or B is black.
Personal preference.
Yeah.
So we got the charcoal, and you also got these blending sticks or newspaper, and tight wound newspaper.
Yeah, or even just napkins or tissue paper works too.
Tissue paper. Then we've got no need for French curves.
Just cut those out for right now.
But you do want some templates for circles and a safety compass or just a regular compass. I prefer safety compass, but that's preference.
Yeah.
And then we said a white eraser and a kneaded eraser. I think I might have said that already. And
right,
then,
the white is going to be like a plastic or rubber eraser.
And then T-square as well as ruler. And one more little tool that not everybody uses, definitely not essential, but I love it. And I still have the same one my parents gave me when I was a little kid.
Oh, yeah.
And this little gem right here is a eraser shield. That's what it's called.
I've seen those many times.
Are you an eraser shield user?
I'm not a shield type of drawer.
Cool, man. You don't have to be. To each their own. This was one of those things that I remember when my parents got it for me. It's a little 30-cent piece of metal, but I remember thinking, what the heck is this? And why I'm not going to use this.
Yeah.
But I use this thing so many times for that really hard to reach corner that I don't want to erase the whole section on, and my eraser is just too big. I just put it in there, erase the tiny little notch, take it off, and you're good.
Yeah, I'm sure my drawings would even reach another epic, higher realistic level if I incorporated some of these tools.
Not only are we helping our viewers today, but we're helping you, Kevin.
Hey, and that's what it's all about, huh?
What it's all about. Absolutely. So cool. So you need that. That's our other tool. Anything else? Do we need any other tools to be a drawing master?
Not that I can think of. Maybe lighting. That might be good.
We'll do a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that really is a whole nother topic.
Drafting tables, so you can have good posture and lighting and all that. But we kind of covered the drafting table in one of our podcasts.
Right. Well. I mean, we could do an entire podcast on lighting, but I don't know if we'd want to bore everybody to death with that.
We can definitely talk about it. We'll talk about. We'll do a podcast on that. Soon. And maybe we talk about real lighting, doing paintings, al fresco or whatever they call it, where it's fresh and outside.
Plein air.
Yeah, clean air drawings, and in natural light versus doing it in a studio, because a lot of times, traditional light bulbs will be a little more yellow and all that. But we'll go into that in another podcast.
Yeah, we don't want to jump into that. That's too that really is a whole nother deep swimming pool to go into. We don't even get into that one
soon. So yeah, I think that about covers us for this podcast.
Yeah.
Anything else you can add? Anything? No, we're good.
I'll leave it with a quick fun tip.
I love fun tips.
Van Gogh only used Faber pencils.
He only used what pencils?
Faber, the Faber-Castell.
Okay, cool.
That was a fun little fact.
That actually reminds me of an art teacher I had who only used Conte pencils.
Oh, really?
every day. We draw with Conte pencils and sit there and blend them, and they're a great medium if you like them. They're awesome, and she was a fantastic artist. But definitely, I recommend branching out from the Conte pencils.
Yeah, those are the first ones. Those are some of the first ones. So,
absolutely,
Well,
if you have any questions or comments, shoot us an email at info@articulatepodcast.com.
Yeah, I think we're gonna stick with that one. We'll get rid of the other one. Just send all of your stuff to info@articulatepodcast.com, care of Sean and Kevin, and we'll get to you as quickly as we can. And again, I am dead serious about these French curves. If you leave a comment on the below this video, or wherever you're watching it, on iTunes or YouTube, or wherever you see this, if you leave a comment and it's compelling enough, I will ship these French curves to your house for you to make a video.
Somebody listing their address on YouTube, but
email it. They'll email it,
and he'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Free art supplies, people.
Free French curves. Come on.
That
you can.
Cool deal. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys and gals.
Yes, always. And I guess we'll see you next week, and hopefully next week we'll have an interview for you, or maybe the week after. We'll see how I set it up, and we'll get to those. We'll have a lot of cool interviews waiting and coming for you guys in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for those.
Good deal. Sounds great.
Yeah. All right. See y'all later.
You've been listening to Articulate with Kevin and Sean. Subscribe on iTunes or check them out on drawingandcoloring.com. Always reminding you to keep it simple.